Hey guys, what's going on? I just got that motor out of here. I got that flywheel housing and all off, and that's what we're going to talk about now. This is going to be the Cummins M35A2 engine swap part 2. I'm going to tell you all about the flywheel housings that you're going to need to do this with. So let's get started. Here on the floor, I have the original multi-fuel flywheel housing. I've got my SAE2 flywheel housing for the Cummins, and I've got the original adapter ring from the SAE3 to the multi-fuel. Now the multi-fuel is not an SAE anything. It is its own size. They, as far as I know, never use that size for anything else. It's not an SAE2 and it's not an SAE1. It's between the two of those. So it's kind of an odd duck. So let me show you some specifics. We got our tape measure here, and that's what most of this is about, is the measurements. I did want to point out we are looking at both of them from the back, with the top side being the top, okay? So now this adapter ring obviously isn't completely... It's actually would be about like that. So, but that's not important. Let's take some measurements, shall we? We're gonna lock our tape measure out to about 28 inches here. That's more than enough. Let's go roughly across here from one to the other. You see that? That's not going to be perfectly centered because I'm doing this one-handed, but close enough. It's about... Shit, I keep moving that. It's right around 19 and a 16th, 19 and a quarter, something like that. I had it earlier with two hands. I think it's 19 and an eighth from across, okay? SAE2 is 18.4 inches. Yeah. Right around it. That's at least that's what the thing says, 18.4. Obviously I'm using a tape measure, so there's not point anything. It's like 3/8. Okay. The adapter ring. The adapter goes from SAE3, the inside, to the multi-fuel size. So the inside should be about 17 inches, 16.8, something like that. Yep. Look at that. Center to center on the bolt holes. So what we're doing is we are stepping up from SAE3 to SAE2 via an adapter ring. We're using the SAE2 flywheel housing, not bell housing, flywheel housing, because we want to run a 17-inch flywheel with a 14-inch clutch, a real truck clutch, okay? You can use the SAE3 flywheel housing if you want to run a smaller 13-inch clutch and a 15-inch flywheel. Let's see if we can get you a measurement here. Pretty sure I've measured this before, and this is SAE3. Yeah. Yeah, SAE3. So you can put an SAE3 flywheel housing and a smaller clutch. That'd probably be okay for a lighter truck like a Bob Deuce, or if you're going to put something like this in an M37 or something like that. But for a heavy truck like my truck, with all the shit that I carry in it, usually weighs around 16,000 empty, with no cargo, okay? So when I'm towing another Deuce or something, I'm grossing around 30, 28 to 30. So I definitely want the larger flywheel and the larger clutch. So we're using, just like the multi-fuel originally did, a larger flywheel housing for a larger flywheel and clutch, stepping down to the SAE3 for the Spicer transmission. Boy, that was a long-winded fucking spiel there. Anyway, so the reason we can't just go ahead and put this adapter on here, obviously, is because the outside diameter was meant for the original multi-fuel flywheel housing, and it's too damn big. The bolts will not line up. In fact, the inside diameter is closer to lining up with the holes on this than the outside. But if you're going to be cheap like me, you can repurpose this if you have a lathe or know somebody who does machine work. You look at this, we're just over 18 inches across. We are 18 and an eighth, okay? If we look at this, what is the inside diameter? 17 and, what is that, 5/8? 17 and 5/8? So you'd have to have this inside lip turned down to 17 and 5/8, which is no big deal. That way this center raised locating lip, because this is the inside of it, so it would set on here like this. That lip right there keeps it centered in the flywheel housing. So you get that done, so it sits down in there, and you would obviously want to have the outside turned down too, so it's not sticking so far out, and then re-drill your holes. Now you can get an adapter ring that's already made to go from SAE 2 to SAE 3. They range $300 to $600, and they're not the easiest to find. Usually you've got to pre-order them and wait on them to be made. So if you have a machine shop in town that's competent, you can take your original ring and have it modified and still use it. And it may, depending on your shop, it may cost you more, it may cost you less than just ordering the ring. Moving on. I think I've covered that enough. Remember, this is an SAE flywheel housing, right? Meaning, okay, the multi-fuel stuff was all standard, right? Now the Cummins, pretty much everything on it is metric. But since it's an SAE flywheel housing, you can take your original studs and reuse them. Okay? So that's going to save you a bit of money in hardware there, because you will want to probably use studs to bolt that ring to your new housing. You can use bolts, it really doesn't matter, but studs are cooler. Cool kid stuff. So, you know, I've mentioned a few times in other videos I wanted to keep the starter in relatively the same place. Now, once again, we're looking at them from the back. We're standing where the transmission is. And my starter is high, passenger, and on here my starter is mid to low mount, passenger. So this is going to get it up higher, away from water and stuff like that, make it a little easier to reach for service or replacement, and it keeps it on the same side of the truck so I don't have to change my wiring. Not a big deal if I did have to, but it's nice that I don't. So let's flip these over, because there is one final measurement that is important. I'll show you that just as soon as I get this. Oh, something else I noted. I haven't really tried to screw that in hard yet, but I think the original studs for the motor mount are going to fit in here too. You will have to make adapter plates for this. I'm going to have to. I'm showing you why right now. So, all right. Once again, our measuring tape. This bell housing, flywheel housing, dumbass, is wider than that one. So, motor mount bracket surface to surface is exactly 20 inches. All right. So, out of my way, shitbag. If we go to this one, we're 18 and 9/16. So we have an inch and 7/16 difference to make up between the two, which means making spacer plates for each of these mounts that makes up an inch and 7/16 split between the two, or you can favor one side or the other with a little more. I would like to try to keep mine perfectly centered, because I don't want to angle my jack shaft coming out of the transmission at all if I don't have to. The other thing, now this is the top, right? The other thing we've got to keep in mind straighten this one up as well, is that on this flywheel housing, the motor mounts are mounted very high. Center line of the crank is about here. So you see how much higher the motor mount brackets were. This is what sets the depth of the engine in the frame. If you look at this, this is your top bracket, boss, and same over here. Now you see how much closer it is to center line of the crank because we've got the starter up here, right? So you're going to want to take a measurement from here up and the same over there and compare, and do what you have to do to put your motor mounts in the right place. You don't want the motor mount sitting, or the motor sitting too low or too high. Probably be better higher than lower, because if you set it too low, then you might end up knocking your axle on the oil pan, which would be a terrible, no good, very bad deal. This looks like it actually probably would sit the motor higher. Yeah, because the center line is actually closer to the top boss. Anyway, it's just a few things that I'm going to have to address. I do have a buddy that's a machinist, luckily. I could do these by myself, but that will not fit on my lathe. So, I think that's about all I wanted to cover right now. If there's anything else in particular that I think is important that I find out along the way, I will get back to you on it. As I said, gonna have to make adapter plates, because that is, it's still a 4-bolt boss, but it's way different between the two. So luckily it's not the same width. That way it leaves you about almost 3/4 of an inch on each side to make adapter plates. So anyway, hope this is helpful to you guys. Hey, look, if you're working on this project, let me know in the comments. If I know I can't be the only one doing a Cummins swap in an M35 right now, and you know what, if you guys get it done, if you guys get something figured out before I do, dude, that's awesome. Share it with us. That's awesome. So hey, thanks for watching. Gonna get you another video soon, but right now I got to get all this shit figured out, and I'm actually working on getting the manifold off of that thing, because, well, I've shown you before the issues with that. So we'll see you later. Thanks for watching.